Hello and welcome. My name is Robert, and I'm going to be walking you through the quick start guide for Kubewarden. Now, if you don't know what Kubewarden is, I suggest you go back to the previous video where I talked to Raphael and Flavio about what is Kubewarden. But we're going to walk through the guide. Now, to do this guide, there's a couple prerequisites we're going to need to have. So first, I have the guide over here, right here, ready to go, and right here in front of me, I have the computer I'll be working on. This will require Helm, kubectl, and a cluster. Now, for me, I'm going to be using my favorite cluster, which is Rancher Desktop. I have it here installed locally, configured, ready to go. And over here, we're going to be running it through the terminal where all the magic happens. So, first and foremost, let's go up and, well, let's add the repo first. Now, we're following the guide. The guide's actually a pretty solid guide. Normally, I get to build these, but the Kubewarden team built this one for us, so I get to actually enjoy going through and doing a guide instead of actually being the one writing the guide. So this is kind of a treat for me as well as it is for you. Next, we're going to install Kubewarden itself on our cluster. Take a minute or so, actually a few seconds. And done and done. Now, the directions here are very, very, very generic, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. But the first thing we want to do is go to the step where we're going to enforce our first policy, right? Now, they made it very easy. We can do this all from the terminal. Policy created. Now, if we look at this real quick, TL, and we say, would help if I put the verb in there, right? And then make sure we have the right namespace. All right, so it's not active yet. It's still working. It's still warming itself up. And if you go to the guide, it'll have something similar to this. So let's copy this and bring it over, and we'll show you guys what that looks like. And look, the webhook's there. That's pretty awesome, right? Now, let's try to create a pod with no privileges on this container. So if we do that real quick, and again, they have a fantastic guide. Copy and paste right into the terminal and do everything you need to do. Boom, pod created. Amazing, easy. Let's go to the next step and let's try to create with at least one privileged container. All right, so let's bring this back over. And we got an error right here and there. Now, this is exactly what we expected through this guide. And if we can look at the two differences in this pod, we know that one's privileged and one is not. And the one that is privileged threw an error and the policy was enforced correctly. Now, that's an amazing thing. Now, there's two ways we can uninstall this, right? We can go through it the manual way here. Takes a few seconds. Awesome. Oh. I didn't. This is a copy and paste fail. Fix this up real quick. Nice and easy. And then lastly, we can uninstall from Helm. That's it. Now, that's the hard, long, difficult way of doing it. We can also go over here to Rancher Desktop, the environment I use, hit reset Kubernetes, and all should be well. with our cluster. Now, I do not recommend you guys doing this with a cluster that's production, development. Great to do it on your local desktop to get started with it. The directions here were amazing to go through and get a taste of what Kubewarden is, but here in the quick start guide, it's just getting you started, so it's a very high level. So when it goes into some of those policies, you might want to read deeper into it through the documentation. Thank you very much for watching this tutorial of walking through the quick start guide for Kubewarden. I'm Robert. See you in the community.